Today, we're going to dive into the often overlooked and forgotten conflict that helped shape the United States into the nation we know today, the War of 1812. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the causes, major events, and lasting impacts of this war, and why it remains an important part of American history. So why is the War of 1812 often forgotten? Well, for starters, it was sandwiched between the American Revolution and the Civil War, two conflicts that tend to get more attention. Additionally, it didn't have a clear-cut victory for either side, which may have contributed to its relative obscurity. But despite this, the War of 1812 had a significant impact on the United States and Canada, and helped shape the relationships between the two nations for years to come. Let's start with the causes of the war. One major issue was British impressment of American sailors, where British naval officers would forcibly recruit American sailors into the Royal Navy. This was a major source of tension between the two nations, as it violated American sovereignty and hindered American economic growth. Additionally, the British imposed trade restrictions on the United States, which further hurt their economy. The British did this in an attempt to maintain their economic dominance over the United States, which was becoming a formidable economic power in its own right. American expansionism was also a factor in the lead-up to war. Many Americans wanted to expand their territory into Canada and Florida, which were still under British control. These desires led to increased tensions between the two nations and ultimately contributed to the outbreak of war in 1812. However, the conflict didn't go as planned for either side. The Americans launched several offensives into Canada, but were mostly unsuccessful. However, they did achieve some victories on the water, with the naval victories on Lake Erie and Lake Champlain. These victories gave the United States control of the Great Lakes, which was a major strategic advantage. In response, the British launched attacks on American coastal cities, including the burning of Washington, D.C. in 1814. However, the tide turned when American forces under the leadership of General Andrew Jackson decisively defeated the British in the Battle of New Orleans in 1815. This victory boosted American morale and cemented Jackson's status as a national hero. Ultimately, the Treaty of Ghent was signed in December 1814, restoring pre-war boundaries between the United States and British North America. However, the war had lasting impacts on both sides. For the United States, the war helped establish a sense of national pride and identity. It also led to the construction of several forts and improved military infrastructure, which would prove useful in future conflicts. Additionally, the war helped solidify the separation of powers between the executive and legislative branches of government, as Congress became more involved in the decision-making process for war. For Canada, the war helped establish a sense of national identity separate from Great Britain. Prior to the war, Canada was seen as an extension of Britain, but the conflict helped establish Canada as a distinct nation with its own identity. It also led to improved relationships between the United States and Canada, as both nations learned to coexist peacefully. But the War of 1812 also had lasting effects on Native American communities. Many Native American tribes fought on both sides of the conflict, with some allying with the British and others with the Americans. However, regardless of which side they fought on, Native Americans suffered greatly during and after the war. The Treaty of Ghent did not address Native American land rights or sovereignty, which led to continued conflicts with the United States government in the decades that followed. In conclusion, the War of 1812 may be a forgotten conflict, but its impact on American and Canadian history cannot be ignored. It helped shape national identities, solidified the separation of powers in the American government, and improved relations between the two nations. But it also had a devastating impact on Native American communities, highlighting the ongoing struggles for land rights and sovereignty. As we continue to study and learn from the War of 1812, we must remember its complex legacy and the lessons it teaches us about war, diplomacy, and the lasting effects of conflict.